Oh boy, that intro is creepy, huh?
Yeah, I feel like we now have like 25 minutes to actually do some content.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Veteran Nation Unexplained.
I like how you say another episode as if there's just been a whole series so far.
There is. It's behind the scenes.
I know
Episode 2.
we have a college educated person in the group with us today, and by college educated, I don't mean Skipper.
Mine doesn't count. Eastern
does
Michigan doesn't count.
Does 2 episodes count as a series, or is that just kind of a shot in the dark at this point, like definitionally, or is that not in your wheelhouse or Art?
I think it's all. It depends on what's to come, right? When you open a series up, you put out a couple episodes, you got more. It's a series.
Well, the nice thing is we don't have to worry about anybody canceling us. Like, there's no studio exec that's going to be like, "Yep, yank plug on that one."
No.
So yeah, Kahanu, what are we talking about today?
Well, today's topic should be pretty interesting. Something that we all probably know about. It's the Chupacabra.
I feel like you need to say that with more of a Spanish accent.
Chupacabra.
It's been a great show, folks. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, we have an intro for it.
Oh, more intro. Wonderful.
Well, let's get into it. Sorry.
Chupacabra isn't just a myth, it's a predator and a terrifying one. First surfacing in Puerto Rico in the 1990s, it brought with it a wave of bloodless animal corpses, drained completely dry, their bodies left cold and stiff under the moonlight. Locals gave it a name that fit the horror, Chupacabra, goat sucker. But this isn't just some mangy dog or misunderstood animal. Witnesses describe a creature that doesn't belong in this world, with leathery, gray-green skin stretched over a bony, alien frame. It stands 3 to 4 feet tall, with glowing red eyes, spines or quills running down its back, and fangs meant for piercing flesh. Some say it moves like a lizard, others swear it hops like a kangaroo. But all agree, it moves fast, vanishes without a trace, and kills without mercy. The Chupacabra doesn't tear or gnaw. It feeds with precision, 2 puncture wounds, clean and deliberate. No signs of a struggle. No blood at the scene. Just silence, as if something unnatural came through and erased life from the land. And it's spreading. From Puerto Rico to Mexico to Texas and beyond, animals keep turning up dead, their bodies untouched except for that chilling signature. Some say they've heard it at night, a low growl in the darkness or the sound of something heavy scuttling across a rooftop. Science tries to explain it away, blaming diseased coyotes. But people who've seen it, they know better. This isn't a sick animal. It's a hunter, and blood is what it craves. So if you hear strange sounds in the night and your pets start acting strange, don't go outside. The Chupacabra is out there, and it doesn't knock.
Yeah, the Chupacabra.
All I want to know is,
I
can
feel
we get
like
one?
I feel like ICE would be better served going after Chupacabra if they're coming up through Mexico.
Stop the infestation.
It's elusive. So what are our thoughts on this creature?
Well, I want to go ahead, Skipper.
It first
Or
was
whoever that
alluded to through deaths of cattle, correct?
Yes. That's how I first heard about it. Was it draining cattle? Not necessarily mutilating it, but draining the blood, and some of the organs are missing.
I think in the I mean, it's obviously like you showed the picture where it's kind of across the North America throughout, Central America. I think the stuff like from Central America, I think where it kind of came from originated because it means something to do with goat. So goat sucking. So even though we see a lot of cattle on those pictures, and there's probably some of that, I think it started out because of people seeing it eating, or they thought they were eating goats.
Take a lot of Spanish. Have you, Art?
No, I took German.
Well, for one, the goat sucker, that sounds like a really bad barracks joke. And but this is Vet Nation Unexplained, so we have to, make military jokes. But I do want to address something on a psychological level here too, is when you're dealing with situations or cryptids or X creatures, whatever terminology you want to put on this, you have to wrestle with the reality of socio-psychological infection, if you will. So one person reports seeing something, and then another person reports seeing something that sounds the same. They get to not necessarily get together, but people start to put those things together, and then all these other similarities apparently start to creep up around a region. That region grows and spreads, and then other people are seeing it. And the apparent spread of the Chupacabra into, even places, I've heard reports of people saying they've seen it as far, I think it was as far north as Massachusetts, in one story.
Yep.
I cannot speak to the existence of this as a cryptid or something supernatural one way or another. I have just not seen enough on it, but I will not rule out, and I think it's wise to proceed with caution on a creature that's reported to be like this, and say there's nothing more fun to view than something no one else has seen or experienced. And that, I think Chupacabra we a lot of the sightings or findings, if you will, of their victims probably can be chalked up to something else, especially when you're talking about Central America up into the southwestern US, especially with the predominance of big cats. And big cats love to go for the neck. And they love to kill, and they don't always kill and haul away, and they don't always kill, haul away, and eat. Sometimes they just kill. And that can be very disturbing to someone who's not used to that. Cats are not, big cats especially aren't, yeah, Skipper, just like that. Or, they're not these hunt only when they want to eat type critters. They will kill just for the sake of killing.
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines.
Yes.
So what?
One thing I think is interesting. Go ahead.
I was just going to play off of what TC said. I understand, like, big cats definitely won't take their prey all the time, but what leads to is the right word, sanguination? The draining of the blood is what really catches my attention. Do cats do that?
Well, they don't drain. Well, we do have a
biologist.
Actually, Bart, Bart. Art. I was combining biologist and art, and you got Bart. So it's a good thing you're not a forensic biologist. You probably would have got fart there. So, so Art, you're the biologist and a friend of Skip, and we here at Vet Nation Explained, Unexplained, and Live, and Vet Nation Cooking would like to apologize to you for a lifetime of torture that you've experienced. But what kind of biologist are you? And
yeah,
what would you say about this?
So my background is in a mixture of things. You kind of become a multifaceted, but my core background is really ecology. So like environmental studies on animals and behavior. And then I teach a class. It's probably one of my most valuable classes called comparative physiology. So like we compare animal systems and how they all are similar but different. So we try to understand, where we overlap, like, comparing humans to other mammals versus mammals to, like, let's say fish, where we have similarities, but where we have differences. And so I guess I'm pretty well aware of like large animals across different things from reptiles to birds to mammals, and like how we have some overlapping similar characteristics and how we contrast, I guess. Right. And so we actually talk about a little bit of this stuff in some of my classes. I was mentioning to Kahanu in the beginning, because we talk about the comparative aspects of animals and where things don't make sense, where they don't overlap, and where they do overlap. And I guess I'll be more specific. So with something like Chupacabra, it could make sense, like what more similar to like Bigfoot, because they are things that if I was to analyze it from a perspective of like, what's the animal like? It's probably a mammal. It's probably, people say it's maybe not a dog, but it's dog-like, at least in the pictures, right? So it makes sense when you look at it. It's like it has all the anatomy that fits most animals that we think of as mammals. It could be a different animal, but it fits that. There are other types of cryptids, as you were saying in the beginning, that, to be specific, that don't really fit that model, right? So like I mentioned in the beginning to Kahanu before we started, like I talk a lot about mermaids. They're like a fish, reptile, human, mammal combined, and there's just like we don't see anything of like that in nature at all. There's no animals that are crossing classes of groups of organisms. But
that's a lot of rough nights for drunken sailors to bring that about. I just want
right. It's so weird and different. It doesn't really fit a paradigm that we see on Earth, right? So, but something like this, at least it's dog-like and mammal-like or something. So we could have a different species. We don't have evidence for that yet. That's strong that people have identified something of that, but it's possible.
A little known fact of biological history when it comes to the mermaid. The phrase "I'm going to go get some tail" started with drunk sailors chasing salmon to their spawning bed.
Really?
And here we are.
Now, is it possible at all that Chupacabra is actually half man, half bear, half pig?
Man, bear, pig.
Yes, 100%. So, I would apologize that we have devolved already, but it wouldn't be us if we hadn't. So,
Art, what creatures? Go ahead, TC.
Well, when you asked about whether or not this could be, do big cats insanguinate their prey? Well, they're not known for bloodletting in, like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of, or Hostel, way. If you haven't seen the original Hostel, don't, by the way. They're not known for that, but what you also have to understand is that if this is a big cat, let's say this is let's say you're dealing with the southwestern United States, or you're dealing with Central America, and maybe you're dealing with we're going to say euphemistically cougar, right? Because there's what we know as the cougar. It has territory. Stop it, Skipper. I see it. I see it. I see it. What we know euphemistically as the cougar has pretty much one family line across the entire North American and Central American continental area. Some places it's a puma, some places it's a mountain lion, some places it's a cougar. Others will call it, oh gosh, man, what's the other?
Well,
one?
even to your point, how they mixed the Florida panther with the Texas.
Yeah,
cougar.
Right.
Yeah.
You will see this family of big cats all over, but let's say we're dealing with just the southwestern species, or even as you stretch into the west, central, and northwestern areas, Montana, Idaho, Washington State, that particular family of cats will kill and then drag. And especially if they're getting an arterial puncture, which is what they're going for. They're going for two things when they go for the neck, and they almost always go for the neck. They're going for an arterial puncture, and they're going for a spinal to sever the spine. It paralyzes the prey, and it causes them to insanguinate. And so then they'll drag that animal a great distance, oftentimes, sometimes to hide it, and not necessarily even to come back to it. Like bears will drag their prey and hide it and bury it under deadfall, under rocks, put it in the mouth of caves, cover the front of that cave, and they'll come back to eat, where a cougar will kill its prey and leave it. They're just doing it, whether it's territorial, whether it's just for the sake of the kill. So by the time somebody finds it, oftentimes it's been moved. You don't even know where it was killed. So people saying, oh, there's an absence of blood with this dead animal. It's Chupacabra. It drank its blood. Well, especially like something the size of a goat, how much blood does a goat have in it? And what happens is that's draining. Are we following a track? And is it even possible for the average person who isn't a tracker to even begin to pinpoint where the blood is by the time they've gotten to it? So that's my thought on trying to approach it from a scientific skeptical side.
Well, and to that point, like a lot of your larger predators are typically not there to just to drink the blood. They're going to be there to get the meat. I mean, that's where all the calories are. There's so much muscle there, right? So they might leave it for a while, like you said, but they're typically if they're coming back for it at all, they're not going to drink the blood and then leave. They're going to come back for the muscle if they're going to come back to actually gain calories.
Not to mention especially the mammalian body, what it has to do to be able to process something like blood as a food source. So if you look at the vampire bat, the way it, and there again, we have a biologist who can answer this better than I can, but the vampire bat in particular, it doesn't insanguinate. It literally pierces and laps. So it just laps it up. Most people who have been victimized by a vampire bat or preyed upon, if you will, by a vampire bat, it happens in their sleep. They don't even know it's happened. But the digestive tract and the system of a vampire bat compared to other bats may look an awful lot alike, but their system is very different and very complex because that's all they feed on. That's it. That's all that they feed on. And it has to be that way because it has to work so hard to process nutrients from the blood.
Yes, absolutely. And to that point, one of the things that's changed, I guess it's getting off topic, but one thing that's changed amongst like humans versus other animals as being predators, is that so when they go and they can only eat so much typically, which is why the animals often will hide their food, as you were saying, because they can only take on so much because it takes so much to digest it. We don't have the same issue necessarily because we cook our food, which already pre-digests our food, where most animals can't do that. It's actually, if they have humans have done studies where if you just feed a human raw meat, the amount of work it takes to digest it is so substantial that the cost is so high that we wouldn't have become what we are. And so animals, when they typically kill something, they may leave it, but they're generally coming back unless most evidence goes to even like lions that will go on killing sprees. It's usually something psychological, something messed up in that individual. It's not usually a species driven thing. You wouldn't just kill prey on average and leave them.
I mean, AVA is like, damn, you guys, you're crapping all over my Chupacabra story.
I'm getting all this smart talk. You sound all funny and your words come out weird.
Now, I'm
bag and your shit's all retarded.
Yeah, so I didn't want to say it like that.
So what I'll say, and and just so everybody knows, I don't know Art. We didn't even really get a chance to meet before the show started. So, but I can hear in what you're saying, Art, that you're not discounting the possibility of something like this existing.
No, so I mean, there's two ways. I kind of view it in my own way as like there's two ways of looking at things, right? So there's the perspective of like what's possible and what's probable, I guess. And this is not, I think, something that like when you even talk about like Sasquatch. So I don't necessarily think Sasquatch exists, but I don't think it's impossible, right? Because it's something that you could explain to fit the natural paradigm of what exists. But then there are things that are impossible, like a mermaid, right? And then there's probability. And what's the likelihood that we found this? Do we have enough description that we can actually look to it and see relationships where if this animal is similar to something else in the animal species that exist currently, because we all are, these animals are all related in some way. So can we compare it and find what exists out there? So there's a difference between possibility and probability, I think.
Life.
It's a good statement, because I wanted to ask you, in your experience, have you come across any animals or creatures, for lack of better words, that kind of match to the description of the Chupacabra?
I mean, it kind of mostly
Not outside of the
matches.
bar scene.
Yeah, right. I have not encountered anything, I mean, but just so it depends on the description of the Chupacabra. Some of the ones that were like, even that we kind of saw rolling past, a lot of them are whether or not they are or not this animal, they are dog-like or coyote-like or something. They have 4 limbs. They're built in a similar fashion. They have some kind of a jaw as a dog. They could be different. We haven't found them to be able to identify them as something different, but they definitely resemble a canid. So, but then there are other versions of Chupacabra with wings, and you can find different kinds of stuff out there. So different people's interpretations, and now we're getting into a different realm.
There
Sorry,
is
I
a
talked.
theory that these are coyotes with mange, and that's why those who have seen them have described the skin. Now, the first reports obviously were down in Puerto Rico, but they've kind of moved around Latin America. It first was dubbed El Vampiro de Mocha, which is also a way to describe Kim Kardashian.
Got it.
You were just leading us to that.
Are there any other animals out there that, man, I don't know the way to say it, sanguinate other creatures, other animals?
Not as a food source that I'm aware of.
Yeah, not that I know of either.
I mean, well, that's not true. In the sense of it, that the insanguination could lead to death. There are, especially aquatic animals. Lamprey are a really good example of a creature that will latch onto its food source, but it's not prey per se. Lamprey will, I don't know where within the category, within the family of fish that the lamprey falls, but it's in there somewhere. But they latch on to anything in the water that they can find that will provide them with enough blood. And if you get enough lamprey feeding on a particular target, it will kill them. But they're not trying.
It wouldn't be overnight.
Not well, if it's a big enough lamprey and a small enough other animal, yeah. But they find them on sharks, they find them on whales, they find them on dolphins, they find them on other, smaller fish. But that's not their target. And there are other animals that leave wounds that look somewhat like what people are describing. Once again, like the cookie cutter shark, which nobody knew existed until like the mid 90s or late 90s, as far as confirming it as a fact that they would find fish when they would be hauling on nets, and they'd be finding fish with these circular patterns carved out of their flesh. And they'd be like, well, what's causing this? And then they eventually caught a cookie cutter shark that its jaws so extend that it's like they just go in and like a hole saw, just cut out that chunk of flesh. And they may not even be cutting on enough flesh to kill the creature that they're preying on, but they sanguinate.
So no, to your point, what's really interesting, you brought up lamprey, right? So lamprey, especially in the Great Lakes, where they're famously studied because they affect us as Americans or whatever. They do kill their prey. But the reason that is we find is that they came from the ocean originally, and they because of that they actually didn't typically kill their prey on most of their oceanic prey items. But they're so big and so impactful. They got to the Great Lakes, and there's all these smaller fish like trout and not so much salmon as much they will a little bit, but like these whitefish, and they will kill them in the process. But but they're actually getting, what we find is these lamprey are actually shrinking in size. They're getting smaller as generations pass because it's working, but it's also a problem because you're killing your food source.
So
most animals that can do this are like leeches too, but they don't typically kill generally.
With the picture on screen, this is an image from North Carolina. And with this image, it doesn't appear to be a dog or a canine type creature because the tail is is a big cat
Super
size,
long.
but it like the weight of the legs is significantly different, I think, from what a big cat would be. Um,
Is that
you're
not
looking
a
at
Tasmanian
any thoughts?
dog or whatever?
Skipper, can you take us off screen and make that bigger?
Yeah.
That didn't work.
Hold on.
You took us off screen. That worked.
Can you see the stripes on that back leg, or is that just the pixelation?
That looks well. If it's not pixelation, it looks more like muscle stridation to me than.
Yeah, it looks like that. Like the animal's emaciated.
Yeah,
like it's really, really thin. It's probably starving. That's what it looks
which would have been in keeping with mange, because that's what mange does. Not only does mange, attack the pelt, but it actually will start to cause starvation, because they just can't. They're just sickly and can't eat.
Yeah, usually they have a compromised immune system, which is why the mange is taken over.
Yeah.
Would that make them want to attack more often or go after certain types of food, like blood?
They'll take more animals that are struggling. If they have just enough energy to attack, they will take more risks for sure.
Yeah, definitely more risk, but they're not targeting something like goats just because they're going for the blood. And you also have to remember, when they are willing to take more risk, they're also going to, along with taking more risks, they're going to actually take a lot of creatures that are outside of their normal prey source, and this will oftentimes lead them to taking like things that are sounds counterintuitive, but they're going to end up taking creatures that are actually softer targets. It'll bring them closer to human populations, where they can find an animal that's far less likely to be conditioned instinctually to run from them.
Yeah.
So, did you just do? Please don't pet the dog, or can I pet the dog? You did the dog.
It's kind of like wolves, where wolves don't typically attack humans, but if you either put them in the wrong circumstance, or they are extremely emaciated and struggling and been removed from their pack, they'll take more risks, and they could even attack humans more.
Or even territory encroachment.
Yeah,
it's really hard to move a wolf out of its territory.
What are the chances it could be an amphibian? Obviously, I would
every time
imagine
Skipper asks a question, I'm like, okay, where's the joke?
I would imagine there's plenty of caimans in Puerto Rico, so there's clearly amphibious animals.
That's
any
not
chance
an
of that?
amphibian.
You mean reptile?
Well, I mean any amphibious animal, something that because
you mean aquatic? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, he thinks like a marine.
No, I'm thinking of an aquatic animal that would come onto land for purposes of hunting.
That's not.
Yeah, I mean, there are animals that will come out of the water and could take down something, but they're generally, I mean, aquatic animals are built different, built differently. One thing that so if you think about, like, I'm trying to think of like any reptile that even has longer legs that would be aquatic. Not a lot.
Well, actually, yeah, really, worldwide, an aquatic reptile that would be able to even begin to come close to resembling something like this would have to almost be a smaller saltwater croc, because they have a much taller stature when they're on all four. Well, not that they're not on all fours, but especially when they're smaller. A smaller saltwater croc is going to have a higher profile on its fully extended legs, but they wouldn't leave the kind of wounds that people are describing here. So if they're going in for really a killing strike, you're not going to get just 2 wounds in the neck or in the back. You're going to get even with a smaller croc, you're going to get a full-on chunk of meat removed, because that's what they're going for. They're going for that takedown, and they're just not going to go far enough away from water that they're going to be killing because a croc is any of the crocodilians are always going for a grab and a death roll. That's it. They want to take the prey down. They want to pull it under the water where they have the advantage, and they want to disorient it. The bite's not meant to kill. They wait for it to drown, and the death roll is to confuse the animal, to confuse the prey. And so you'd almost have to have a reptile, an aquatic reptile that had rabies to get it to be that aggressive, and we know that's not possible. So.
And these are all stealth hunters, right? And that's why they use the water. They're the only times they attack on land is when they come out of the water, typically, or if somebody's just a bonehead and trips on one, and then, or you're just not paying attention. But that would be rare.
Or they're trying to hit on a hot New Yorker who's filling her canteen in nasty water. So
and looking at their phone.
I have a question for you. As far as the description of the chupacabra for its anatomy, what purpose, if it was real, do the spines serve?
That's a great question. I don't know.
That points to a reptilian to me.
Yeah.
Reptilians are spiny, and for most reptilians, the spine especially along the length of the lower neck into the spine, are protective. They're a defensive measure. If you're an evolutionary thinker in that sense, it'd be a holdover from years and years and years of evolution where those spines were far more hard and much more difficult.
A porcupine?
No. Porcupine spines are obviously defensive, but it's in a different way where a spiny reptiles, the initial bite on the spiny reptile would be meant to pierce the mouth of whatever's trying to bite it and immediately cause it to release. Whereas with a porcupine, the spines come out so that the animal doesn't even want to bite. And just getting close to it, you're going to get those spines embedded in a paw, in the lower jaw, or even in the eye or whatever as you're coming in. So a spiny reptile, on the other hand, the evolutionary theory behind that is some of these holdovers are from when an animal was the smaller of the reptile species, and larger prey would go in to grab it, and it would be immediately let go because of the puncturing wounds to the mouth that did not allow the jaws to close. And I'm a nerd, so.
No, the descriptions say about 3 to 5 feet tall, so I would assume that maybe here's me just guessing, but a dinosaur grabbing it or trying to chew it up, it would pierce its mouth.
I mean, essentially, if you're going to be predated, if you're being predated upon, it's going to try to bite down on you, and that's a protective barrier above, right? For something like this, though, the problem is that if it's a predator, I mean, like he said, maybe it's usually if an animal has something unique like that and it's a predator, it would make no sense for a predator typically to have that. You're the predator, not the prey, unless it's like a remnant of the past where it's evolving out, sort of, and it would be much smaller. You wouldn't have these huge spines. It's not cost efficient to make something you don't need.
I'm trying to breed the freedom flock to grow spines, to protect from all of the the red-tailed hawks and stuff in my area, but I can't find any better with a spiny rooster. So,
but like you said, and mammals that do have spines, like the porcupine's one, and then you could think of other things like horns, like a rhinoceros makes a horn out of hair, or it's evolved to do that. But that's obviously a defensive structure as well. But generally on the back or something like that, why would a rhino have spines on the back? It doesn't really make sense. They're too big.
I'm of the mindset that is not a defensive weapon for the rhino. It is now completely offensive, and I don't want to be on the receiving end. And I want to talk about dangerous killer hippos sometimes. More people killed by hippos in Africa than any other animal.
Highly territorial.
Yeah. Once again, which takes us back to our bar hopping days. So
what?
And we
I'm trying to figure out how to say this without sounding like a nerd, but what would
You're in good
The
company.
descriptions say that it has either leathery skin or it has like reptilian scaly skin. Why would it have scaly skin?
Well, all right, correct me if I'm wrong, but when people say scaly skin, what they're often referring to is not skin. They're talking about scales. And if it's skin and it's scaly, then more than likely that's pointing to some sort of illness that causes the skin to take on a scaly look. Gosh, what is
That be the mange again? I'm not too familiar with what mange does.
it could be something like mange, but there is a very particular, especially for humans, there is a very particular disease, and I don't know if it's rosacea, but there's a very particular disease that strikes humans, the human species, that causes a scaly skin look.
The mange could do that because it does cause lesions and things because of all the mites eating on their skin, and then it has to heal, and it makes it very awkward and patchy, which makes it scaly like a little bit. So that might be the perception of, because like you said, if it's scales, mammals don't have scales actually, but they do have, you can have skin that feels different.
You would have to have an entire mammalian body that is made up of the same type of your entire outer skin surface would have to be made up of nail beds to have scales, the way the human body functions.
For us simpletons, what is mammalia or mammalian skin?
It's hairy. So all mammals have hair except for like dolphins, but that's because they get rid of it in their developmental stage. So otherwise, but that's one of the key definitions of that. It's usually more elastic because mammals are typically high metabolism. It means they burn a lot of calories, and so they're really hot, right? But because of that, their skin is usually pretty flexible compared to like a reptile, because they have to be able to move efficiently because they're always on the move. And mammals are a lot more on the move than animals like reptiles typically.
All right, thank you for clarifying.
This picture I have up is an African wild dog with severe mange. So you can see the leathery skin and complete lack of hair.
And lack of color too, it looks like. At least based on the picture.
Yeah, I mean, this image right here to me is a quintessential. If you didn't know what you were dealing with, and you saw something that looked like this in your village, in your neighborhood, or on your farmstead or homestead or whatever you want to call it, and you saw something that looked like this, and even if you're like just intimately familiar with all of the predatory animals in your area, you'd be like, "What the actual was that?"
And if I'm a tourist, I'm shitting my pants.
Yeah.
Is Chupacabras in Africa?
And right now, you can save £50 per person.
Yeah, blue.
So I mean, the ears are even, wild. If you know anything about the African wild dog, the ears stand out immensely the way it is. Now you remove all of the hair from the body of a wild dog, which now it looks like these things are designed specifically to do, like bat sonar detection. It's what it's that the appearance that it takes on. It gives it a reptilian look because the skin has that weird wrinkly appearance to it, and it's off-putting is what it is. It's just absolutely off-putting. And I think that's where we get with a lot of people who claim to have sighted something like the Chupacabra. They're seeing something that maybe they see every day. But now the thing that
seen a grown man naked,
that's off-putting as well. But when you're looking at a creature that all of a sudden, an animal that you're familiar with, you've seen the coyotes, you've seen the fox, you've seen, the wild dogs or whatever it is. Now all of a sudden one shows up that maybe has been isolated from the pack and it's looking for an easy kill, and you just happen to catch it in that process. It's not in a pack. You've never seen anything completely hairless like this before. No joke, Skipper, not on this one. And you're going, okay, I know all the animals in my area. That doesn't look like any of the animals in my area. It has to be a cryptid. It just absolutely has to be a cryptid or a holdover from, the Ice Age, or something, which is an explanation for a lot of stuff. And that's going to throw you off.
And that's natural, right? Because I mean, our fear response is so high to protect yourself. So you see something that doesn't fit your paradigm, it's going to alert you at least.
Right, and we all in the humans in there again, just dealing with it from an evolutionary perspective, the human species survived because of pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
That is our mechanism of survival. Once again, just from an evolutionary perspective, taking out all the other, there are a lot of people who believe in evolution that watch our stuff. There are people that believe in creation and intelligent design and all of that. You take all of those differences aside and just put it down from a strictly, why would we develop this? Pattern recognition helps us identify threats, helps us put things that are threatening, helps us put things that are threatening into a category, non-threatening into a category, and the strange into a category. And
I'm not interested
when
in
we
being-
can't recognize
Yeah.
something as being part of one of those patterns, our initial gut instinct is going to be put it into the threat category because I don't recognize it.
Hoo-ah!
Absolutely, completely agree.
I'm just still blown away by that. That's a wild dog?
Well, it's not a wild dog the way we think of wild dogs in the U.S.
It's an African wild dog.
African.
It's a
It is
particular
a
I would
species,
definitely see that as a chupacabra for sure. If I had seen that in the safari or whatnot, that does not look normal.
There you go.
This is what it would normally look like.
Oh wow, yeah, that thing is definitely sick.
Yeah, they run in big packs. They're really really powerful predators.
very. But there again, that doesn't explain, these first sightings, being from Puerto Rico.
Well, I do know they import a lot of animals through South America.
Puerto Ricans do.
They probably do. I mean, I've gotten some creatures that aren't allowed here, but
I'm not talking about your romantic life before you met your wife. So, the thing that we haven't, this is where Art promises to never come back on the show. The thing that we haven't dealt with is the reality that a lot of people want to go then with cryptids that we can't explain, or that people try to explain away from being a natural occurrence through an evolutionary process or a holdover from some part of the evolutionary process, is to a lot of people then turn to it being some sort of supernatural being. And yes, I was waiting for that. We need what's the old Fox TV show with Mulder and Scully?
oh, the X-Files.
Yeah, we need X-Files music now. A lot of yes, sir. You have you have the reality. A lot of people then immediately, when they go, oh well, if we can't explain this biologically and via nature, then this has to be something supernatural. So maybe it's a spirit. Okay, well then if you're going to go that direction, then let's start asking the question of then why is it eating? You're claiming that it's feeding. Then what is it? What else? What's the purpose of this? And then is it just to cause terror? And Skipper, oh yeah, he says. And then what's the purpose of that? What do they feed on the fear? So they puncture this thing's neck with its teeth and drain all the blood out, and they do it and leave it someplace where a person gets scared, and then they feed off the fear. Like, are there energy vampires like Colin Anderson from the things we do in what we do in the shadows, or what? I don't. That's if you haven't watched the show, by the way, you should. It's hilarious.
No, great show.
How long? Okay, so if the chupacabra pierces the skin to drink the blood, how long would their teeth, or the canine teeth, how long would they have to be to just leave those 2 puncture marks and none of the other teeth?
I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean by leaving the
You
two
mean
punctures?
how long would the incisors have to be in
Yeah,
a situation to be able to
Canines.
puncture and leave just the 2 marks?
correct.
It's not even an issue of how long. And Art, if you think I'm wrong, correct me. That's why you're here. They're always looking for someone to come on the show to correct me. So it's not an issue of just how long the incisors would have to be. It's an issue of adaptation of the jaw. You could have a relatively short incisor if the jaw is can articulate differently.
So I mean, so there's 2 parts to that, right? So one, the teeth that are modified though are the canines, not the incisors, right? The ones that actually puncture.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, if these animals are quite good at this, you mentioned earlier, TC, like they're really good at attacking the neck. This is what they're built to do, to kill. And when they do that, they're hitting the things like the jugular and the carotid areas. So they're hitting major arteries that once you puncture them, they're going to bleed and they're not going to stop because there's nothing to stop it. It's, if you cut yourself, it will coagulate, which means to thicken, and it'll block. It'll start to slowly stop bleeding. But if you puncture a major artery, it's just going to keep going. There's not anything that's going to be able to stop the pressure from making that blood come out. So they will bleed out to some degree till the point which the pressure is gone.
We upset.
You don't need to keep the pressure there.
Yeah, we upset AVA. Kahanu left because we didn't tell him what he wanted to know. So the chats thought somebody said I didn't know this wasn't interactive. It's not that we're not trying to interact with you. We're chat. Coffee with Skipper is a far more interactive environment than Vet Nation Live and Vet Nation Unexplained. So please don't. I guarantee you, everybody's kind of scanning the chat as it's going through. So
we're just trying to hold the discussion. That's all.
Yeah. Don't be offended if we're not interacting with the chat. So feel free to continue to chat, and if we see something that's worth shouldn't say that, I did not mean that. If we see something that catches our eye, I guarantee you somebody will bring it up.
Super chat will be put on the screen. So if you send a super chat, it will be put on the screen.
It's a lot easier to see the super chats as things scroll by, to be honest with you. Somebody had earlier in the chat had brought up the idea of it being shape-shifting aliens, which kind of rises into the whole
supernatural.
Well, preternatural, which is I try to use preternatural more than supernatural, because that preternatural, those things that are outside of the norm of natural versus something that's spiritual. And when we start to delve into, okay, it's shape-shifting and it's an alien, so it's an alien lycanthrope. So I don't know so it's an alien that got bit by a wolf, or by the wolf man. And that's the thing, is like, we're so desperate sometimes to explain this weird thing that we've never seen before, i.e. pattern recognition, that we have to really start fabricating.
So the New Jersey Devils actually a Chupacabra is what you're saying?
No.
Well, that is a thought too.
It's a really bad hockey team, is what it is. It's like,
because the Chupacabra has been seen with wings.
Right, reportedly, and I was thinking, leading into the show is, the Jersey Devil. Look at where the Jersey Devil reportedly haunts, if you will, and haunt not in the ghost sense, but as in what a haunt is. A place that's frequented by a particular person or creature. It's a well-forested area with lots of small game. It's being impinged on by human encroachment. Is it possible that there's something in the Jersey Pine Barrens that exists that we haven't identified? Absolutely. Science is still finding creatures. Biologists, like our guest expert, that will attest, scientists are constantly finding animals that we thought were either extinct or on, just borderline extinct, that we were never going to see them again. And now we're trying to bring back extinct animals, which to me just reeks of a really bad movie. But so
several Jurassic Park movies.
Yeah, not that Jurassic Park, the original, was bad, but
no,
we've just gotten too far fetched.
So I mean, you're right. We continue to find species all the time. I could say a couple of things that we know about what we find, sort of, right? And we find species all the time. A lot of the majority of those are quite small. In the terrestrial world. So like on land, they're very small organisms because we don't have to run across them. And they're in places like the Amazon and other places that we don't go as frequently. But we haven't really found anything bigger than like a pygmy horse in like 75 years on land somewhere.
But that's a really good point, Art.
Yeah.
Tell people just how big the pygmy horse is and how long that animal went undiscovered after people believed it was extinct, because they knew it existed. They just thought it was extinct.
I don't know its size. Let me see here.
Because you're not talking, when they say pygmy horses, we're not talking about the pygmy deer of South America that literally can hide under a bush.
Yeah.
So this is smaller than a pony.
Yeah.
It's a horse. It's fully a horse, but it's smaller. Yeah, smaller than a pony. It's like comparing pygmy, or an Indian elephant to an African elephant. They're drastic size differences. I don't want to get beat up by either one of those elephants, by the way. But how recently was that?
I'm not sure on their actual size. I know it's just like a couple feet. Like they're not very big, I guess.
Yeah. For an equestrine, they are not a large animal, but it's still one of those where you're like, how did this thing go undiscovered for so long?
Is that caused by evolution?
The size thing? Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know what the benefit of that animal is, so I can't speak to that animal in particular, but it would make sense that there's probably some piece of the environment it fits into, which is why it evolved that way. And unless we made it happen, unless we take an animal and select to make it become like we've changed corn to be like an ear when it historically it was like a couple kernels.
Are you calling a cootie queen, you lint liquor?
I don't that made in the sometimes, Skipper, I think you just hit buttons. You're like the dogs with the chat pads that they can use, and you just
I've got a toy.
You just hit buttons to see what kind of reaction you get from your humans. And there he goes, look, he's communicating with us. Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot, Coop.
I like mine.
I use the example of the mountain gorilla, or just anything that we know of as like a lowland gorilla or the highland gorillas of Africa. We have this perception in modern times that man's always known, that civilized humanity has always known about gorillas, that they've always been a reality, and there's no way something like that could escape human knowledge for the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years that man has been exploring the globe. But it wasn't until almost like 1898 that the highland gorillas and the lowland gorillas were confirmed as a separate scientific species in Africa. Now, for those of us sitting here in 2025, the 1890s, 1898 sounds like a really long time ago. But in the grand scheme of scientific discoveries, 1898 to discover an animal that nobody believed existed is that's unheard of. We're talking about massive animals. Outside, for a primate, that's a huge animal.
Yeah, I mean, a lot. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're here.
Yeah, a lot of our discovery really came in the late 1800s and early 1900s. I mean, somebody on the planet knew that, like you said, lowland gorillas existed, but they weren't people who were educated and kept documents and shared that with the globe. So maybe locals knew they existed, but it wasn't like the world knew they existed.
Right.
And then Darwin goes out in the 1800s and started to, I mean, there were many people like him that went out and started to categorize animals across the globe. It was a race to figure out and find all the animals that they could find in plants. And that really didn't happen until the late 1800s and early 1900s when we began to take ships more efficiently across the globe and kind of categorize everything. So it's not been that long since we've figured out a lot of stuff in a short period of time.
Yeah, taxonomy is it's always existed. Now, really, since Latin was classifying animals by in the Latin names, but taxonomy has really exploded even in the last 50 years, or even the last 25 years. The taxonomy has really changed things, and so that's why I look at anything. And since Coop's bringing it up, I'm gonna someday we'll do an episode on Sasquatch. We'll maybe several, but I think you're foolish if you absolutely refuse to believe that it's possible for something to exist that's outside of the realm of possibility for humanity to know right now. I live in southeast Minnesota. We have a region around here, and by the way, Skipper, I'm well more than 100 miles away from the Canadian border, just in reference to the thing that we were talking about on Friday. Or was it? Yeah, it was Friday. The Big Woods area in the Bluff country of southeast Minnesota, if I could take any of you out there right now, blindfold you, put you out in the middle of the Big Woods, and you'd never get out. Ever. And no one would ever find your body. And that's just in southeast Minnesota. And people laugh when I say that, but it's true. I could lose you out there and we would never find you. So to sit here and say that there's no possibility that any kind of animal that we haven't identified could exist out there of even small primate size is just arrogance beyond belief. Because we have animals living out there that we're citing that people deny to this day exist. You could tell a person there was a black bear sighting not 5 miles from where I live, and they go, there are no black bears around here, man. If there were black bears around here, I'd see them when I was out fishing. You could tell them that there were cougars spotted down here. Man, if there were cougars spotted around here, I'd know about it because I'd see them when I was out fishing. And I'm like, you don't understand animals. Animals don't want to be seen.
Yeah.
And so if you've got something, especially in that primate style, or if you have some sort of weird cryptid like the Chupacabra, it's not trying to get discovered. It's not looking to advance its Instagram profile to become an influencer. So it's like Chupacabra's not out there going, hey guys, here I am in Cali. Catch me next week when I'm in New York. That's not what it's, it's not what it's doing. It's, if that thing is real, it wants to stay hidden because it's survival. Right.
It survived this long.
If they're real, absolutely.
Well, we was it like 50 years ago we found the coelacanth, right? That was a big deal. This fish that we found off the southern tip of South Africa, and it was a fish that they thought it was gone for a lot, like millions of years, and then they found it, and it's related to the ancestral fish, the coelacanth. And it still exists, kind of like crocodiles, sort of. But so that we still find things more in the ocean than we do on terrestrial, but we still find stuff.
Compared to terrestrial discoveries, as a percentage, how much of underwater, ocean, lakes, how much of that have we actually gone through and tried to discover?
Oh, well, we try, but they estimate between no more 5% of the ocean we understand.
Wow.
Because so much of it's so deep, I mean, we've only taken submersibles down, several dozen times, and that's just in small spots. So, there's so much that is to be discovered still, for sure.
It's mostly because we're afraid of being turned into cheese whiz at the bottom of the ocean if we go into the wrong kind of, boy, good Lord. Yeah, I mean, even in freshwater, several of us are familiar with the Great Lakes. Art, you're just off the Great Lakes. I'm, off the Great Lakes. Skipper, you spent a lot of time near the Great Lakes. Even the Great Lakes are not fully explored. There could be fish species in there that we would look at and go, where did that come from? Are you sure that's fresh water? I mean, we still get people that see sturgeon and they're like, I saw a shark. Which, and by the way, we have seen bull sharks come much further north than St. Louis, Missouri in the Mississippi River. So don't rule out bull sharks just because you're in the Midwest, by the way. But it's really possible for us to not know everything that's out there. So what are you doing, Skipper? Are you trying to get Lacey on screen? Is that what you were? Oh, and we killed his phone. All right. So AVA got to leave.
Yes. Yep.
So I guess we're wrapping up, and we killed Art's phone. And so mission accomplished. Final thoughts, AVA, on Chupacabra. I mean, what do you think the odds are from your research to bring this topic up?
My thought on it is that just because it hasn't been caught or shot or stuck in a museum yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We don't have any proof to say it does not exist, but we can keep looking out there. I think it exists. But like you said, it's good at hiding. They don't want to be seen.
Yeah, I think that's one of the ones that I think a lot of people just absolutely believe that these cryptids are just waiting to be discovered. And I'm like, if these things are real, whatever the cryptid might be, in this case Chupacabra, this is real. It's literally not in the business or has no interest in being discovered. It's not waiting for its time in the spotlight to have its star at Grauman's Chinese Theater, which I'm sure Skipper would be happy to show us Grauman's Chinese Theater sometime. AVA, one, congratulations for those who have only tuned in for Vet Nation Unexplained, which I know is rare. Most of the people that are watching are from all of the shows that we do. But one, congratulations on the purchase of your first home ever. By the way, glad to see that you got that, and thank you for putting the effort into this. I hope that we're able to get you to continue to put effort into the next one that we're going to do. I'm excited to see which direction you want to go. Make sure you give us heads up about what it's going to be so that we can all sound far more educated than just somebody that pushes a button with really bad and inappropriate timing on their soundboard. I'm not pointing fingers at Skipper, but thanks for coming to us with this idea. Thanks for making this a reality. And I wanted to tell AVAU and Skipper in particular, Skipper, thank you so much for tossing to my live stream yesterday. When you closed down Coffee with Skipper. AVA, thanks for being there for the entire pretty much 3 hours. That was great. And for everybody that came over to the live stream yesterday, I really appreciate it. I may not have the growth that Vet Nation and some of the others do, but we had almost 11,000 people watch that live stream yesterday. And much of them were people that came over from here and some of my regular channel subscribers who stayed throughout the entire live stream. So it was fun. It started off very interesting with pretty much my first in-depth conversation where a really large man decided he wanted to argue with me about me being a leftist cop hater at the very beginning. AVA can back me up. That was a very interesting.
I know you love that.
I didn't know what was going to happen.
I kind of thought I was gonna, but yeah, and I think we had something like because Skipper tossing everybody over, we had a great influx at the beginning, and I ended up with 25 new subscriptions by the end of the stream. So thank you. I appreciate it from everybody that watched.
And there's no kings. There is no king. So congratulations to those. They were successful.
Yeah, they did succeed. And boy, did I find out that a lot of these people, had no idea why they were there.
That's what I gathered too.
somebody messaged me and got really upset. Well, I got a couple of messages. I know we're wrapping up, but somebody messaged me is like, why didn't you push these people harder? I said, I'm trying to have conversations with them. The last thing I wanted to do was come out of the gate and just be, why are you stupid? And so if you watch the entire stream, I did have actually a very challenging conversation. One at the very beginning with a guy, and then one I had with the Democratic Socialists of America. I pushed back on him pretty hard, and it was a great conversation. But I based the conversation on the people I was talking to and trying to encourage them to talk. So that went really well. And then I had somebody, and I get this a lot, and Skipper, you know this. I get this a lot. Why don't you ever tell anybody what kind of career you actually had? You tell people that you were in the law enforcement world, but you don't tell them what kind of work you actually did. And I'm like, what's it matter? Like
the same training.
It's pretty much the same training. And so it was just very encouraging. One, like I said, Skipper, to have you toss everybody over for that, and to have people like AVA. And I know that Georgie was there for a good portion of the show, or for the stream. So I really thank you guys for that. You helped out a lot. And if you get the time, go watch the No Kings live stream on my channel, because I think it will help people understand that some of these people, they're not your enemies. They just don't know what they believe or why. They just don't.
I do have I have an idea. I don't know if AVA would be up for doing this, but we know that AVA really enjoys doing airsoft. And I've tried to get him to live stream his airsoft, and he's said no. However, I do think there is an event he could go to do an airsoft battle that would be amazing to live stream, and that would be at a Renaissance fair.
I could live stream, but that's a really expensive, a lot of equipment to run that kind of show.
I would pay to watch you just do airsoft in general, just so as you're streaming it, like via whatever camera device we end up finding for you to make that work. I would just be picking on you the entire time, going, hey, look, cosplayers.
I LARP hard.
Such a hard LARPer. Any idea what we're going to talk about next, AVA? What are we leaning towards?
So I have two cryptids that I want to do. One,
wait
just
a minute.
to keep.
Let's rephrase that.
That I want to cover.
Okay.
One is so that we can keep Doc Martin, in the loop with us. We're going to work on mermaids or the Jersey Devil.
I think you're assuming he's going to want to come back after today.
Hey, I hope so. That's a great mind to have inside of our talks.
Oh, no disagreement. But once again, I'm pretty sure it's a big leap to think he's going to want to come back after that.
But yeah, we got the Jersey Devil and possibly mermaids, but definitely Jersey Devil.
Interesting.
We're gonna get clips of what we do in the shadows for the Jersey Devil, because they did have the Jersey Devil in it.
They did, yes. It's what we do in the. If you guys have not watched what we do in the shadows, you have to go over to. I think you can catch it on Hulu, obviously with ads if you're on the entry level of Hulu. But it is a hilarious show, and it's set up. If you like The Office, you're gonna love what we do in the shadows, because it actually is humorous. So. But
all right.
Thanks, AVA. I know you got people coming over to your house, so let's.
Yeah, I got in-laws coming. Oh boy.
Good. No, I'd say give you a chance to experience true terror.
So close to Halloween.
Well,
all
thanks,
right, you
guys.
two. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll be back, I believe, next weekend with another edition of Veteran Nation Live.
Yeah, we'll find something to argue about in the next week. I mean, talk about.
Civil talk.
So I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Thank you for all the questions, comments. Please hit the like, the thumbs up, subscribe on your way out, and share this and tell people about it. We do appreciate it. And as always, thank you for being worth serving.